I First of all, thanks everybody for coming. It's been a little while since we've done one of these webinars, and there's some pretty good changes in this last stimulus act that I think probably a lot of people didn't get to take advantage of, either learning or reading about it simply because of all the noise coming out of Washington D.C. So I thought it was worthwhile to talk about it because there's a couple different things that could maybe put some money in your pocket and help change the course of business in 2021 from 2020. So um, a couple things that we're going to talk about. I think it's going to take about 20 minutes, maybe 25. If there's questions, go ahead and type them in, and we'll get to them because the questions you have might be the questions somebody else has. So I'm happy to answer with what we know. So there's two things I want to talk about. The first thing that I want to talk about is the second round of PPP money. Um, a lot of people are like, the media's kind of been, you might not qualify, and it's a lot smaller program. It's a really simple test. So all you need to do is compare your calendar quarter revenue in 2020 to the calendar quarter revenue in 2019. If one of those quarters is more than 25% down in 2020, then you are eligible for the PPP second round money. And now that they've given, we have forgiveness, and this last stimulus bill cleaned up the issue of whether the expenses were deductible. Yes, they are, as I've been saying from the very beginning. Then there's no reason not to apply for this help to make up for the loss of business due to COVID and government restrictions. So if you haven't applied for the second round of PPP money and you have a calendar, you're a quarter, not all of them, just one quarter in 2020, the revenue needs to be 25% down from a 2019. For instance, in my office, second quarter last year was down more than 25%. So we were able to, fill out the application, and we literally had our money within 8 days. So I strongly encourage you to take advantage of that to help cover expenses if it's necessary. The one thing that is different with the PPP round 2 than round 1, you had to sign this certification in round 1, but it didn't mean as much then as it does now. But the certification that you'll have to sign says that the money is necessary for the business due to economic uncertainty. And we strongly recommend that if you're filling out that sort of an affidavit or certifying that in the application, that you write down a couple of factors. So, elective medical procedures are down. You've got limits on the people that can come to your store. I see Tony's on here. So your pharmacy's been affected by that. Eric, maybe you haven't been able to do seminars, that kind of thing. So just write down some economic uncertainty, some reasons why your business is facing economic uncertainty and why this money is necessary to help you out. And it's just going to save you a headache down the road if you have to create it later. So just do it now while it's fresh in your mind why you need the money. And I strongly encourage you to take it if you haven't. So again, 25% drop in revenue, calendar quarter to calendar quarter between 2020 and 2019. Okay. That's all. The more complicated the test is. And again, you can borrow 2.5 times your payroll. If you are a casino or a restaurant or an entertainment type business, they have the opportunity to borrow a little bit more. But for most of my clients, it's 2.5 times your average gross wages. And that's the average gross wages for the entire year 2019. Okay. Now, with that, we're going to jump into another topic that's covered in the Stimulus Act. And this was something that even last year, it was in the bill last year, the CARES Act, but we didn't pay any attention to it. And it was because it was a really simple decision at that point in time. There's this concept in the stimulus bills called the employee retention credit. And what it is it's a credit of your payroll taxes. And at the time it first came out in the CARES Act, the rules said if you get a PPP loan, you are not eligible for the ERC. the most recent stimulus bill passed between the election and the inauguration of the new administration. That bill changed the language significantly, and you can now take advantage of it. So I want you to really dig into this a little bit, because it's another way to get help and to, in a way, reward you for keeping your staff on board during COVID, with everything going on with all the layoffs and everything. If you kept your staff, this is a reward for you. Now, this is a two-pronged thing. 2020 is one way, 2021 is another way. I'm briefly going to touch on 2020. It is more complicated in 2020 than it is 2021, but I'm briefly going to touch on it, because if you can go back and you have the records and you can check, you might as well take advantage of it. And they've provided an easy way for you to retroactively apply for the credit now in 2021, relating back to 2020 payroll. So what the test is for 2020 is that you have to have had a 50% drop in revenue for a calendar quarter in 2020 as compared to 2019. If you have that, then you are able to get the credit for each successive quarter until your business got back up to the 80% threshold of what the revenue was for the prior calendar quarter. So it's meant to help businesses that are, more than a 50% or 50% or more drop up until they get back to the level of 80%. The other way you can apply for it in 2020 is if your business was subject to a full or a partial shutdown or disruption as a result of COVID. And they're reading this pretty expansively. So if your business was an essential business and you didn't have to close directly, but if you're a manufacturing company and your suppliers were all shut down, so you essentially had to shut down because you had nothing to work with, or for your team to work with, they're going to let you say that you were affected by the full or partial shutdown. So your supply chain helps you establish that. So if those two factors are in place, then for every calendar quarter that you're eligible, you can get a credit on your payroll taxes. And so this is a credit that's on your Form 941s. So you do this with your employment taxes, not your income taxes. In 2020, the credit is equal to 50% of up to $10,000 of wages per employee. Now, in 2020, once you hit $10,000 of wages for an employee, so it's a $5,000 credit, once you hit it, you're done. It doesn't start over the next quarter. That's the benefit for the year for 2020. So it's a little bit limited. Again, some people may not think it's worth the effort. And the other thing to remember is that if you got PPP money and you paid for wages with PPP money, those wages that you paid using PPP money cannot get the credit also. So you also have to take that into account when you do the formula. I've not yet developed a spreadsheet that does all this. I'm conceptualizing it, and if I get it to the point where I think it's good, then we'll put it on paper and we can distribute it out to people. But 2020 is a little bit complicated. The best thing that came out of the new stimulus act, other than the $1,200 or $600 payments if you got those, was the change to the employment retention credit or employee retention credit going forward in 2021. Now, the credit is available for the first 2 quarters of 2021. So it goes until June 30th right now. So you can do it the first 2 quarters of this year. And the way you qualify is a much easier test. It's not a 50% revenue drop. It's a 20% revenue drop. So if your business is down 20% in the first quarter of 2021 or the second quarter of 2021, compared to 2019, not 2020, 2019 for the first quarter or the second quarter, then if you've got 20% down in each quarter, then you can get the credit each quarter. So the first thing they've done, they've made it easier to qualify, and most of you have had or experienced a 20% drop in your quarter, in your revenues compared to 2019, for 2021, 2019. And so a lot of you will be eligible for this. The second really good thing that they did was that they made the credit 70% of wages up to $10,000 per employee, and you can do the $10,000 again the next quarter. So the maximum amount of credit per employee has gone up to $14,000. So this is a number that got my attention and said, this is a significant amount of money. If somebody can benefit from this, we need to get this information into people's hands. And so what you're doing for 2021 to see if you're eligible for this is you're comparing your revenue from the first quarter of 2021, which is going to close here in another 6 weeks, and you're comparing it to 2019, or you can go back and compare it to the fourth quarter of 2020. If either one of those give you a 20% drop, you're eligible for the first quarter. Second quarter, you can compare it to the first quarter of 2021. You can compare it to the second quarter of 2019, or you can compare it to the first quarter of 2019. So the second quarter, you can go back to the first quarter of 2019 or the second quarter, whatever you need to establish the 20%. If you're eligible in that quarter, you would calculate a credit of 70% of the gross wages paid to an employee up to a limit of $10,000 per employee per quarter. Okay? Significant amount of money. And what's the benefit of that to you? That credit goes on your Form 940, and it can offset the amount of money that you have to send into the government as deposits for your federal payroll taxes. Means they've considered to be paid by this credit. Bonus number 2, it's refundable. So if you don't use all that money to cover the payroll, to reduce your payroll expenditure, and there's still credit left and you're at a negative balance, you can request a refund of that money and get a check written to you by the government for that credit amount. And so if this is something that you think could benefit your business, the timelines are going to be a little bit goofy because, obviously we aren't going to know till the end of March what your revenue compares to. And we've got payroll tax reports due shortly after the end of March. But it's something that you need to get your bookkeeping staff and your accounting staff up to speed on. We have to keep the records, and the records we have to keep are, what is our revenue comparing it back? Let's do a spreadsheet of that and do our percentages. So we need to do that. The second thing that we really need to do is we need to start monitoring, if we got second round PPP money, what wages are eligible. So like in our particular case for my firm, we are going to use PPP money for our first payroll starting with the payroll period that closes tomorrow. So that means I've got all of January payroll and one February payroll that is eligible for the credit. My PPP is now going to go 8 weeks. And so that's all I'm going to get. But if it's $5,000 and I get 70% of that, that's $3,500 an employee potentially. So it could be a significant amount of money that is credited to my payroll tax account, and that could create a refund for me. Now, in lieu of having to file a whole bunch of amended 941s, the service has also issued a directive that if you need to apply for 2020 retroactively or 2021 retroactively after you filed your 941s, you can accomplish that with a 941X. And it's a form that specifically allows you to designate the amount of credit that you are eligible for in that period. And so I'm going to have my staff monitor it for our benefit, and you should have your team monitoring this for you too. And we're happy to help because it is complicated, but it's an opportunity to get both PPP money if your business needs it, and it's an opportunity to be rewarded for keeping your staff on board. In my particular case, heck, we added people. last year because good talent was available, and you hire good talent when they're available. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today. It's probably a pretty short presentation. I don't want to make it overly complicated, but if you had a drop of revenue of 20% in the first quarter of 2021 or the second quarter of 2021 as compared to 2019, you really should be considering filing a employee retention credit for the employee retention credit. And it's 70% in 2021, 70% of $10,000 of wages per employee per quarter. Again, the maximum is $14,000 per employee. I don't know if the next round of stimulus, if it gets passed, if it's going to include an extension of that or not. I don't know. So right now it ends June 30th. It's just the first 2 calendar quarters of this year. But take advantage of it if you can. Remember, you can't double count. So if you're paying for wages with PPP money, don't use that also for the credit. You have to reduce the amount of eligible wages for the credit and take that. And I strongly suggest you keep your calculations showing this stuff so that you have a record of it. So along with the PPP round 2, document your business need. And now with this, document your calculations. These are the quarters we compared. These are the numbers. Here's the percentages. Here's the payroll that's eligible. This is what we did for PPP money. This is the wages we paid without PPP money. And this is our eligibility. So don't double it up. Let me see if there's any questions, and then we can let you guys get on with your day. But I thought that this was important enough information that I wanted to get it to you. So remember, so in 2020, you have to, or 2021, I'm sorry, 2021, you have to qualify each quarter. 2020, you qualified automatically for the next quarter until revenue was back up to 80% of the prior year's revenue. I don't see any questions. Hopefully this is of benefit to you guys. I wanted to get this information in your hands. We don't do payroll for everybody. So this is something that you can go to your payroll providers or your office manager, your office bookkeeper, and say, hey, I need to see year-to-date comparisons. Let's look at percentages for revenue. And then let's figure out if we can get a credit under this program, because now it's open to people who took PPP money. So if anybody has any questions on this, you can contact me offline. Everybody knows my email address or our office phone number, 319-390-5555. And either myself or somebody on the team would be happy to help you. But I wanted to get this information. So thanks for coming. If you're in the Midwest, stay warm. They say it's going to get better next week, but I don't believe them. And the snow can end anytime. So take care, and we'll be in touch next time. Thanks.